All right, good morning, everybody. We are Joy Mennonite Church. We are recording our service this morning, and we will be posting this a little bit later, but we are happy to be meeting again this morning virtually, and we are a small church located in Oklahoma City. We are open and affirming church, and yeah, we're located just south of the Capitol, so a small Mennonite congregation. We are going to get started with our worship, and Karen is going to help us with that. So you can take it, Karen.
Oh, did you put the
Oh, let me share that. Sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did not bring my books over here thinking it would be.
Yeah, no, I'll share it. All right. Is that good?
No, I'm talking about the screen that has the prayer on it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So y'all will answer in the yellow. Jesus calls us to praise and prayer, to song and silence.
Jesus calls us
to worship.
Jesus calls us to hearing and healing, to service and solidarity.
Jesus calls us to love.
Jesus calls us to advocacy and action, to protest and provision.
Jesus calls us to justice.
Let us heed the call of Christ.
Let us worship together with joy. All right, now I'm going to get us started with some music. We will okay, give me wave your hands or something if you can't hear the music when it starts. We will get started here.
For we are strangers no more.
Sorry.
Strangers no more, but members of one family. Strangers no more, but part of one humanity. Strangers no more, we're neighbors to each other now. Strangers no more, we're sisters and we're brothers now. Come walk with me, we'll praise the Lord together as we join song to song and prayer to prayer. Come take my hand and we will work together by lifting up.
Watching the video right now.
Yeah. Could y'all hear anything? I think
really?
everyone else could hear.
Oh, weird. Yeah, it's just maybe it doesn't run to me.
Okay. Should I just keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the burdens we can share, for we are strangers no more, but members of one family. Strangers no more, but part of one humanity. Strangers no more, we're neighbors to each other now. Strangers no more, we're
and we have another song. Oh, sorry. I think it's going again. Okay. We have one more song, and then Karen will do the scripture, and then I'll let you introduce David after this song. I'm going to go back to this. See if this works. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm not sure that I shared the sound. Just a second. Let me try one more time. Okay, yeah, I did. Okay.
God of the Bible, God in the gospel, hope seen in Jesus, hope yet to come. You are our center, daylight or darkness, freedom or prison. You are our hope, fresh as the morning, sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. Fresh as the morning, sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. God in our struggles, God in our hunger, suffering with us, taking our part. Still you empower us, mothering spirit, feeding, sustaining from your own heart. Fresh as the morning, the sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. Fresh as the morning, sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. Those without status, those who are nothing, you have made royal, gifted with rights, chosen as partners, midwives of justice, birthing new systems, lighting new lights. Fresh as the morning, sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. Fresh as the morning, sure as the sunrise. God always faithful, you do not change. Not by your finger, not by your anger, will our world order change in a day. But by your people, fearless and faithful, small paper lanterns lighting the way. Fresh as the morning, sure
All right, so everybody could hear the music good? All right, excellent.
Yes, we could.
All right, I'm going to share the slides again and get us to the verse for today. Can you see that, Karen?
Yes, I can.
All right.
So this scripture is one of the parables. It's from Luke 18, 1 through 8. Jesus told a story showing that it was necessary,
Uh-oh, did it go away?
Yeah, necessary for them to pray consistently and never quit. He said, there was once a judge in some city who never gave God a thought and cared nothing for people. A widow in that city kept after him. My rights are being violated. Protect me. He never gave her the time of day, but after this went on and on, he said to himself, I don't care what God thinks, and even less what people think, but because this widow won't quit badgering me, I better do something and see that she gets justice. Otherwise, she'll keep coming and pestering me until she wears me out. Then the master said, do you hear what that judge, corrupt as he is saying? So what makes you think God won't step in and work justice for his people who continue to cry out for help? Won't he stick up for them? I assure you, he will. He will not drag his feet. But how much of that kind of persistent faith will the Son of Man find on earth when he returns? That just reminded me of our current situation with protests. It is the always being the widow, giving the cry that there is injustice in this land and it needs to be righted. We shouldn't forget that. We must always persist. And so today we have David Harland from Tulsa. He is an architect there, but how I know him was from when Pilgrimage Mennonite Church in Tulsa was beginning. We were both on the front end of that, forming a group that was doing a lot of brainstorming together about how it would shape up and come together. And I learned about his involvement in helping to bring AWARE to Tulsa, and then recently learned that he is also, it has been recognized as a surge, well, I don't know what to call it, companion. Anyway, I'll let him tell you all about that. Thanks for being here, David. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. This is amazing. You asked me if I had a scripture in mind, and I didn't have one, but oh my gosh, that one was perfect. That was amazing. So thank you for having me today. It is a joy.
I think we lost your video, David.
Did you? Dang it.
Yeah, I think when you unmuted, you might have.
There you go.
No, you see.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to need to do is look at my notes another way.
Okay.
So give me just a second. There we go. So thanks for inviting me to speak. I think it's an amazing opportunity to connect with folks, especially in the pandemic, to make these connections and talk about things that are going on. My name is David Harland. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. And I live and work on Muskogee Creek land, which was significantly and surprisingly reaffirmed by the Supreme Court just a couple weeks ago. So the reason I was invited here is because I am a co-founder of an organization called AWARE Tulsa. Our goal is to assist white folks in learning about, coming to grips with, and issues around racial justice, and then also hopefully connecting those same folks with opportunities to be activists around those topics in the area. We are also an affiliate organization of Showing Up for Racial Justice, which is a national organization that has a similar mission. I'll talk a little bit more about what it means for us to be an affiliate of theirs here in a bit. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about my social justice journey. which really began just after 9/11, 2001, where my eyes were opened in a big way to a world that I didn't know existed, in terms of just what our relationship as Americans is to the broader world, other faith communities, what they believe, what they don't believe. And when I first got into social justice work, it was around interfaith communication. So I was in a lot of great groups here in Tulsa that were either focused on the monotheistic faith or broader than that later. And that's really where I began. I went back to school around 2005 to Phillips Theological Seminary, thinking that I knew precisely what all the growing edges of Christianity were, and hoping to change my career path, go into academia. But what I learned when I was there was that the growing edges of Christianity within academia were far broader than I expected, and they had to do with a lot of things that the greater community is dealing with, such as sex, sexuality, gender, and race. So it was at Phillips that I was first introduced to the idea of kind of reflecting upon my own whiteness, what that means, and how that affects how I relate to others. And so while I was there, I also did a lot of soul searching about what my own personal theology is. And what I came to was that I truly believe in a God of justice, a God that believes that the goal is justice in this world, and not, for me, it's not so much about delay for the next. And so when I kind of got to a point where I decided maybe a seminary path wasn't the right choice for me, and I stopped trying to pursue that degree program, what I did in order to keep up with that same spiritual practice and that same connectivity was I poured my soul into volunteerism in the community through social justice organizations, which is what led up to eventually becoming a co-founder of Aware Tulsa. So Aware Tulsa formed in 2005 in response to the killing of Eric Harris by a reserve deputy of the Tulsa Sheriff. The similarities to the George Floyd killing are striking. I'm not going to go through the details. If you want to know more, you can look up the details in the video on your own time. But I will say that the police methods were brutal. The shooter was inept and underqualified, and the treatment of the victim by the officers was inhumane. Multiple organizations formed in Tulsa in response to this. And I will say that at the time, the Tulsa area lacked a culture of community organizing. Many of you are probably aware of the 1921 race massacre. But because of that, and because of the continued lack of attention to that community and the continued maltreatment of that community, there was not an organizing culture. They were not protesting. The feelings of the Black community, as well as the Hispanic Latino community, as well as the white community, was just sit in the tension and do nothing. There was just kind of this hard silence that lingered over Tulsa all the time. And so when these groups began forming after the murder of Eric Harris, it was brand new, and it was hard, and it was messy, and every move that we made was a struggle. And several of us who were white and who were in these spaces, these were amazing spaces where people in the Black community were showing up, and they were telling their stories, and they were talking about how vulnerable they felt all the time, every day, to police violence and to police corruption. And we were there listening at first, and it was amazing. But there were several of us who were white who were tracking a trend that we did not like seeing, which was that white folks were speaking up more, dominating the time, not being respectful of Black and brown voices in the space. And at the same time, we saw Black and brown people showing up less and less. And this is what the problem of sometimes what the problem of white involvement into racially diverse organizing spaces is. That's what it looks like. White folks center their own thoughts and feelings. They don't listen to those who are most affected. They we think we know what the answer is, so we just move boldly into space, and then we're surprised when Black and brown folk stop showing up. And in order to understand that, we kind of justify it by, well, they just don't want the help that we're offering. And this is a systemic problem in that as white Americans, we have not been encouraged, in fact, we've been discouraged from paying attention to our own racial identity and our own racial culture, how it operates, how it moves through spaces, how it impacts the way we relate to people. And not understanding that means that sometimes when we move through these spaces, we do so in a way that's damaging in ways that we don't intend. So that dynamic did not come as a surprise to some of us, because there were a few national organizations who had been doing some organizing work and who were had gone through the hard learning on this ahead of time, and who were posting a lot of things and trying to get people aware. And so we had been watching that, and when we saw this happening, we were like, aha. And we had tried in a couple of spaces to call in the white folks and just say, hey, can we talk? Can we discuss what it means to be effective in these spaces? Can we discuss what it looks like to truly support our Black and brown neighbors and not overtake the space, not move in ways that we are unintentionally damaging to their causes? But because everything was so new, and because not everyone had learned some of the lessons that I think they've now learned, we've had a little more time under our belt, this honestly was looked at with suspicion from some of the leaders of color at the time. They weren't sure where it came from. And we were told that this wasn't desired or acceptable in that space. So we knew it was good because we had been listening to these national organizations who are saying, you really need to do this if you're going to be in multiracial organizing spaces, and you need to have a space for white folks to talk through things, process their feelings, get their thoughts out, do all that before they move into multiracial organizing spaces, so that they can be more effective in listening and following the lead of leaders of color and that sort of stuff. And so it was in that moment when we realized that we couldn't, the few of us who were trying to do that in those spaces that wasn't really something that the leaders wanted, that we were like, okay, let's look at forming our own organization. And that's when Aware Tulsa became a thing. And that was our goal. Aware Tulsa is never intended to be the work. Aware Tulsa has always intended to be a support to the work. It's intended to be a support space where white folks can come in and process, get to know the information a little better, kind of work through the hard bits that asking people of color to walk through with us would just mean re-traumatizing them to the things that they deal with every day, and maybe asking more of them than is appropriate. So it is a value that we hold high, that we as white folks that are somewhat along the path need to be the ones working with other white folks to bring more folks along that path and prepare them to do the work in shared spaces with Black and brown folks. So at the time that we decided to form, there was a brand new national organization called Showing Up for Racial Justice, or SURJ, S-U-R-J, that had formed in 2014 following the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. There were white leaders there who had joined the protests in Ferguson and had learned a whole lot about what they had been listening a lot, and were like, tried to show up in certain ways, and sometimes had to learn some hard lessons, and had retooled and worked, and they formed SURJ. And we're like, okay, we want to grow this, and we want to get more communities involved nationwide. We want to create a national network. And so they had two ways of connecting. One was you could become a SURJ chapter, and the other was if you were already operating as an independent organization, you could become an affiliate, and that's what we did. So that basically what that means was we agreed to their standards. So they had specific standards around how we would operate if we were in protest spaces in terms of listening to leadership of color in those spaces, that we needed to have accountability partners, Black and Brown-led organizations that we would partner with and that we would discuss all of our actions with, so that we had someone who agreed to be that for us, so that we could check in and make sure that they agreed that what the actions we were taking were good. For most of our time, our most prominent accountability partner has been the Terrence Crutcher Foundation, led by Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, although we have, to a lesser degree, worked with the Black Wall Street Times, the New Sanctuary Network, which is working to end incarceration of detainees from the border in Tulsa, and also the DREAM Act Oklahoma to a smaller degree. So we were part of the Demanding a Just Tulsa Coalition that formed in 2018 as well, which was formed to demand public hearings around the Equality Indicators Index, which was a third-party study that showed that there were indeed police brutality problems in Tulsa, and we were working to get the city to take action on that and make structural changes. Check in on time real quick. Okay. Honestly, our relationship with Surge took a little while to blossom. When we first joined, they were new, they were growing, they had all these new organizations under their belt, and they were obviously struggling to meet capacity. But more recently, after having kind of just been kind of a partner in name, we've connected back with them and learned that they have stuck with it, they have grown, they have a far better network and capacity to support people and have a ton of resources to share, and also have done things like recently in Tulsa over the Juneteenth weekend, they had people on the ground helping protesters who there was a group called Unify Tulsa who was standing vigil in Greenwood and specifically had the goal to keep Trump and Pence out of there because they had stated they wanted to visit and they did not feel like that would be respectful. So Surge was on the ground supporting that Black-led group with just capacity, sign creation, doing whatever they could to make sure that that went smoothly. What we have found, though, is that really Surge and Aware operate in two separate modes. And I'm going to try to go really quickly just to kind of give a brief synopsis of what this looks like. Surge is an organization that primarily supports what I will refer to from this point forward as the uprising. That's what has gotten a lot of attention recently. That's the protests that are in the streets. That's the people who are at the city council meetings and at any place that they can voice their opinion to talk to leaders and say, this needs to change. This needs to change now. Aware did some strategic planning last year, and we looked at all of the organizations that we were in partnership with, what was already robustly represented and what still was lacking. And we decided that our best role was to double down on what we originally formed as, which was this quieter, slower, but very needed space for white folks to work through what these issues mean so that when they do engage in these things, they can do so more effectively. And even if they don't want to engage in any sort of public action, that they can better talk to those around them about these issues and work on what I'm going to call culture change. So there's these two arms of the movement, which are really, they operate like opposite of one another in their tactics, but they are both elements of the same strategy towards justice. So what I'm going to outline here is differences between the uprising and culture change. Audience. The uprising is about pressuring policymakers, government officials, city services such as police forces, CEOs of private companies, etc. It is about getting the structures of our community to work differently, whereas culture change begins with individuals and is spread by conversation. The goal is for the conversation to gain enough momentum that it eventually either reaches those policymakers or convinces folks at the ground level to become policymakers, to run for city council, or to take that position that's available at their office where they can actually be in charge of policies that impact these things. The relationship of speed versus sustainability is different between the two. One of the primary differences between the uprising and culture change is that the uprising prioritizes speed over sustainability. The people are in the streets because this needs to change now because people are dying, and that's real. Justice is needed to stop the murders, and we can't wait for our elected leaders to have an epiphany about thinking that this is the right thing to do before they decide to change those policies. So the idea is to make it as politically expedient for them to make those changes as possible. But the idea is not, well, I'll get to that in a second. Culture change, on the other hand, prioritizes sustainability over speed. The work that AWARE is involved in, we understand it's slow. We understand it as planting seeds that may not come to full growth in our lifetime. It's the idea of planting a seed so that future generations can sit in the shade of a tree. It is the slow person by person discussion where we compel people to see the truth in the need for justice. And we sometimes plant those seeds with the idea that we just need to have the faith that they will grow in our absence. The strategies are different. The uprising is about applying pressure to make those right decisions. It's not about waiting, like I was saying a minute ago, for the leaders to decide it's the right thing. A good example of this is Aunt Jemima Syrup. They did not decide to change their logo because it's the right thing to do. People have been telling them it was the right thing to do for decades. It was this moment that this uprising happened, and they saw so many of the people that are their market being supportive of that uprising, that they saw that as the moment that they could without losing profit. So it was, the uprising made it politically expedient for them to do so, so they did. That's the strategy of the uprising. The strategy of cultural change is appealing to the humanity of individuals, and it attempts to compel folks. It draws people in with the idea of, we need you to be your best self, and we need you to pay attention with compassion for others. The voices they use are different. The uprising shouts, shuts down highways, disrupts, and makes issues tangible for everyone so that people will pay attention. Culture change requires a space that includes compassion for everyone in the conversation, where they are, where they've been. This is where those of us who are white need to be able to say, I was where you are once. And these are the things that changed my mind. This is my path. This is where I'm at. This is how I got here. Impact. In the end, the uprising is about trying to shift behavior and policies. It's not about changing culture. A policy maker may change a policy, but they may begrudge the fact that they were forced to do so. And another policymaker may sit in that seat after them, and they may seek to overturn that change. Just like a couple years ago, the Voting Rights Act that was so hard fought in the civil rights movement was overturned. And now we're seeing the Senate putting through measures to overturn its overturning or reinstate it. If we don't change the culture, though, with culture change, then we are leaving the situation in a state where people of color will have to fight in the streets, have to be in an uprising forever, for everything. We need to change the culture that allowed those racist policies to be put in place to begin with, and we need to change to a culture that's willing to, without a fight, put anti-racist policies in place instead of them. And the last thing I have to say about the two modes is people, and this is really, really important. The uprising has room for white people. If that's what you want to do, great. I would recommend that you contact the people of color who are involved, who are leading it, or contact an organization like Surge that is white-led but involved in the uprising and has a lot of Black and brown accountability partners to help them make sure that they're on track, and get involved. But this is a space where, as white folks, we need to always follow the lead of others. We need to make sure that we're always paying attention to the degree to which the Black and brown folks who are involved are showing up, and match that but not exceed it, because if we are troublemakers, we are not the ones who will face the backlash. Our Black and brown neighbors are the ones who are going to feel the brunt of the backlash that comes from any escalation. And so as white folks, asking what they need, listening, hearing, and then implementing what they need is the most important thing. For culture change, this is the place where we as white people have the opportunity to be the leaders. This is the part where Black folks, as a general rule, are saying white people need to be doing this. White people need to be talking to other white people. You need to be having these conversations. You need to be doing the hard work. You need to be having these conversations with people who it's uncomfortable to do it with. Like, you know, people who we know are going to overtly resist it. And also people who maybe aren't going to overtly resist it, but where the stakes are highest. It's always highest with family, right? They may not be the most resistant, but the stakes are highest with family. So sometimes it's scary to have those conversations. Those are the places that we need to be having those conversations, and we need to be pushing into that. As Aware Tulsa, we are currently working on developing a program to help folks do that. We are not ready to roll it out. We do have an outline. We are working currently to get our community partners up to speed and maybe form a couple new ones. And we are going to be putting our outline in front of them for them to assess and give us feedback, tell us whether they would like for us to change a few things, focus on some other things. And that's going to happen through the month of August. I have no idea how long it's going to take for us to get to a point where we're going to roll it out after that. But right now we have pulled back from our public-facing content to work on a program that we can roll out to the public that is going to be small cohort focused. So we're going to be trying to get 8, 9, 10 folks about the size of this gathering together for a multi-session discussion, so that it will be the same people in each discussion, so that you can get to know one another, so that you can track people's progress, so that you can see how folks change from session to session, and you know the context of that person's story when they start talking about something that they went through. It's going to be something where there's a little bit of time between each session so that we talk about it, and then you have a couple weeks to a month to experience the world and look at how it plays out in your own life, and then come back together and discuss what you saw as part of that session. And it's just going to be a place where it is safe. It will be a white group, because that is the goal. This is, we know the work doesn't happen just by white people, but we do know that white people need a space to come to talk about the work, prepare for the work, and kind of get some of their rough edges cleaned up a bit before they step into other forms of the work where it might be in the multiracial space. So that's what we are working on developing and rolling out as soon as we can. If you are interested in the uprising, if you're interested in supporting those who are in the streets, I would recommend you look into contacting Surge. I would recommend you look into contacting Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City if you haven't already. They're doing some really intense things, and they're in desperate need of support because they're getting a lot of pushback. The Justice for Julius campaign is an extreme case where that needs a lot of our attention and a lot of our pushing. But if you're interested more in the culture change portion of the work, I would say you can just start talking to people. Just lead with compassion. Understand that the voice that is used in the protest and the voice that is used in the uprising is not the voice that's going to work for culture change. And understand that it's okay and it's good to hold both of those voices and use both of those voices at different times for different reasons. Scream at the system. Be compassionate to your neighbors and your loved ones as you have these conversations. And then also keep up with Aware Tulsa and other organizations like us who are working on resources to help you out with these conversations. Our primary forward-facing, public-facing platform right now is we have a Facebook page. So if you look up Aware Tulsa on Facebook, you should be able to find us. Right now, we're just kind of spamming our page with whatever content we feel is relevant to racial justice in this moment. But we are going to be rolling out our new mission, vision, and values soon, and hopefully rolling out as soon as we can a time frame for when we plan to begin facilitating these small group discussions. So I think that's everything I have to say, other than just it's been a pleasure to be here to tell you about what we're about, to talk about what our goals are, to kind of talk about how we got there and what we think is effective, and also to just know that there are others out there who hold justice work as part of their spiritual practice, and that we can be in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, David. You know, this hit the spot for me today, a place I've been thinking about, and I'll share more about that with you in the second part of our discussion. But thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Like Karen said, we move on to a discussion time. Once we finish, we're going to wrap up with one more song and a sending prayer. And then for anyone watching, on a normal Sunday when we do Facebook Live, we do a discussion time when we end the Facebook Live. And that's when our smaller community has about a 20-minute discussion, and we share joys and concerns. And yeah, so if you want to be a part of that and you're watching this recorded, you can always send us an email. I'll put that up at the end before we end the recording. And you can contact us if you would like to be a part of that moving forward. So I will get us one more song, and then we will, Karen, I'll let you send us off with the prayer, and let me get this going first. Sorry.
Longing for light, we wait in darkness. Longing for truth, we turn to you.
All right. And just so everybody knows, our music today was one of our members, Aaron. I forgot to mention that. He had pre-recorded some music for us that we're very grateful for. So, anyways, oh no, sorry. My thing kept going. All right. So Karen, I will spotlight the prayer for our sending. And we will go with that. Can you see that?
I can see that.
Awesome.
All right, again, y'all will repeat the part in yellow. In our concerns and in our choices, God is with us. In our disappointments and in our joys, God
is with us.
In our protesting and in our serving, God is with us. Now and always, God
is with us. Thank you, Karen. And here is our information. Like I said, if you're interested in knowing more about us or joining our conversations that we have after the live feed, you're welcome to email us here, and we will get you part of that conversation. We appreciate you watching this, if you're watching it, and hope to maybe hear from you in the future.